Hello, everyone, and welcome to another interesting episode of Clatonia Talk Show. And today, we'll be discussing a very interesting topic on every adult's mind, which is the increase in house rent in Lagos State and the agent fees. I know this one is a topic on every adult mind. So yes, we'll get right into it. I am your host for today, and my name is Oyindamala Olanraju. And here with me is
Godson Osai. Pleased to be here.
Pleased to have you here. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. So this topic is a very great topic, and I'm so honored to be having to do this with a barrister. So we'll get right into it. First, why can't I get a comfortable space in Lagos for an affordable price?
Okay. There are affordable and comfortable places in Lagos. It depends on your choice. Well, with the development going on in Nigeria, especially in Lagos State, almost everywhere, there's comfort everywhere. It depends on your choice. Depends on what you want. They've decided, Lagosians have decided to divide Lagos into two. There's a part of the Lagos, the Lekki axis is called the island, while from Surulere down to Yanepata axis is called the mainland. It depends. There are more developments on the island, and that axis tends to appreciate more with regards to development. And once development comes in, the rents will go up.
Okay, so while raising this question is, lots of young minds have like jobs on good places. Let's say like Ikeja, the island and the rest. They have jobs in those places, and they can't afford to get like houses in places that are too far from where they work. So now, if they want to come close to where they are working, you start hearing house rents that are like so high than what they can afford. Even their salaries can't even pay up, this money. So why is that? I don't think this is a comfortable thing for the youths in the country currently.
Yes, it's not. But mostly everyone are now business people. Most landlords in Lagos do not have old houses, but they do not have the capital to develop their property. So they tend to, have an agreement with some investors who call themselves developers. And they have a joint venture agreement or a lease agreement for the said developer to manage their property, to develop and manage their property for a certain number of years. So these developers tend to develop and then to recoup their money and also make interest. So that's why you see most houses, go high, the rent and every other thing. They have service charges and this happens mostly in choice areas. Like I mentioned, in Lekki axis, even in Surulere, around Surulere here, yes, it's very expensive. So that's why.
Okay, thank you so much. So, also, are house owners aware of these ridiculous agent fees that are put on houses?
Yes. Well, in Lagos State here, there's a regulatory body. I think it's Lagos State Estate Agency Regulatory Authority.
Okay.
It provides that any agent is entitled to 10% of every fee. But because of the nature of the business and interests, some agents tend to increase it in order to meet up with so many people involved in the agency fee. For an example, I'm an agent. I post a property online, and then another agent gets that property, posts it on his own platform. Another agent gets from him, posts it on the old platform, and the potential tenant gets and is interested from that third agent. You see, so if the rent is 1 million and you pay 100,000, how would three people share 100,000? That is 30,000 naira or thereabout. So that's why they tend to, increase it for everybody to
But are there things like put in place to actually curb these things?
Just like I said, government can be everywhere. We need to help ourselves. So you as a potential tenant, if such fee is being presented to you, go to this agency that I mentioned and report the said person. Because some of these agents are not duly registered. Some are roadside agents. Just like I said, I'm not a registered agent, but I can work as an agent. In fact, anybody can just stand up and work as an agent, which is not proper.
Yes,
it must be duly registered. Yes.
So how do I know a registered agent?
Okay. Firstly, a registered agent must have an office. And then he must also have a certificate showing that he's duly registered. So if you get to the office of a so-called agent, there must be an inscription or a certificate placed in his office. If you look around it and he doesn't have it, you can request for it.
So it shows you in person.
Yes.
All right. So in reference to a particular story that was posted recently that said that house rent was like 1.5 million. They were paying 1.5 million to the caretaker.
Okay.
So their landlord came to greet them in the house, and then they decided to beg the landlord that he should reduce the money, the rent that they are paying, that is too much. Only for them to find out that the house rent is actually 500k. So the caretaker has been extorting them for over 1 million naira. So now, in such case, who is to blame? Like, who are we supposed to hold accountable? And if I want to collect my rent back, who am I going to meet?
Well, firstly, as a tenant, you must have your tenant. Once you make payment, you have to get your receipt from the landlord, and then a tenancy agreement duly signed by the landlord. If the tenancy agreement is signed by any other person, there must be an evidence. We call it power of attorney.
Okay.
Whereby the owner, the real owner or the landlord, delegates his power to
the person that signed.
To sign up on his behalf. Okay. From this, and if it's done, the landlord ought to have a copy.
Okay.
And the tenant ought to have a copy. So if it's duly signed by the landlord, how else do you prove that? How would the landlord say that he's not aware of such? Yeah. So, but if he's really not aware, then the caretaker should be arrested.
Exactly. So that means he can actually be arrested for that.
Sure.
All right. So also, before the hike in house rent, like for instance, I get an apartment now, and my 1 year rent is not even up, and then the caretaker or the landlord is telling me they want to increase the rent. Is that legal?
Okay. There's no law stopping any landlord from increasing his rent at any time. What the judgments of courts have always said is that tenants must be given reasonable time. To stay in an apartment before increment.
Okay.
Reasonable time to some people could be 6 months, could be 1 year, could be 2 years.
But then the reason why I asked this question is, so for instance, I get into an apartment newly. For instance, these houses that are not really nice outside. So I get into the apartment, I renovate the whole thing, make it into my own taste. And then probably my landlord sees the new taste, and then he just wants to look for a way to just remove me from my space. And tells me, okay, my next rent is going to be, maybe I was paying 500k, now it just says that out of the I'm paying 900,000 or even 1 million naira. In such position, what am I supposed to do as the occupant of the house? Because these things actually come out of the blue, and then I wouldn't have a choice than to leave the whole thing I've already suffered in using my money to make better. So that kind of thing, I think I should be able to sue my landlord for that, right?
Yes, but it depends in the area. If the rent is increasing it to, if you ask around or check around, and there are similar apartments that have such rents, I don't know what else I don't know what you can do about that. But if you ask around and the said increased rent is way higher than the other similar apartments, you can sue him for necessary increment.
Okay.
Yes.
So, what is your advice to house hunters, like people that are just coming into the market of looking for an apartment or fresh, how do we call them now? Fresh renters. What's the advice that they could hold in their hand while looking for houses like this?
Okay, firstly, with regards to being comfortable, this is Lagos. Actually, the Lekki axis. Our advice, if you're going to look for an apartment, go there during the rainy season. You might go to an area where is a waterlogged area. During the dry season, you won't even know. It has happened to me when I was staying in, there's a place called Ologolo after Jakondi. When I moved in there, it was during the dry season. And I think it was in June. I was sleeping and I woke up. There was water in my apartment. It spoiled my phone.
Wow.
It spoiled most of my properties. Couldn't do anything. So that's the first thing. Secondly, try and speak with the landlord. You must speak with the landlord. Or if he's a caretaker, try and confirm if he has the endorsement of the landlord. Because some people might just give out an apartment without the notice of the landlord.
At the end of the day, when it comes, ruckus here and there.
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much. So also, I'd also like to point out this. I know that the government are probably doing what they're doing. I don't know if they're doing something good or not. I wouldn't say. But then, is there like any thing they are doing to make it better? See, house rents now are so ridiculously out of the... In fact, a place you are paying 200k, 300k is now going to 1.2, 1.5, and there's no difference. Like, it's not like the area is different from how it used to be or anything. These caretakers or landlords are just increasing the rent majorly because they want to meet up with the kind of lavish lifestyle that they are living. So is there anything that the government is actually doing to make it better for us that are not so boxed up to get an apartment at the high price, and we still cannot go to the slum because we have jobs in better places? Imagine me taking 2 hours to get to my workplace, then I have to wake up like 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock before I can get to my work, and I'm still leaving the work late and getting home late. So is there anything the government is actually doing to make these things better?
Well, I tend to disagree with you. You said that landlords increase to meet up with a lavish lifestyle.
Well, from my point...
Nigeria as a nation, Nigerians are in trouble in Nigeria. So there's economic degradation. I remember 2 years ago, fuel was about, it was 200, 198, 200. And the new administration came in, they removed subsidy and increased the fuel. You don't expect a landlord that was, taking 300,000 as rent to continue. How will he meet up with the challenges in the country? So they tend to increase reasonably. Reasonably, I mean, making inquiries in the area to know the least amount or the highest amount houses cost in the area. So that's why most of them do it to meet up with their needs, not to the lavish lifestyle. I tend to disagree once again. And then my own take. The Lagos State House of Assembly, they are discussing about it now on the high rates of the rent in Lagos State. I don't know about other states, and I will also advise them. There should be a regulatory body. There should be fixed amount for areas. Or if a tenant is moving into a place, you should give such tenant about 6 or 7 years before increment comes up. If it's a law, most landlords should be afraid of increasing summary all the time. And certain axes must have a limit. If it's rural area, they're saying rural area is 2 million, let it be 2 million. No one should rent above 2 million. I think with these regulations, the high rates of rent increments will be curbed.
Thank you so much. So when houses, areas are being established, like maybe a new road is commissioned or they fix something good in the community, why does it have to affect my rent?
Because it's a development.
So
development attracts more capital.
But even if it will, I feel like maybe there should be a placement for law that if a road is fixed in my area now, they can increase like 10%. Why do they have to increase like 100%, 50%? outrageously.
Well, just like I said about the challenges in Nigeria, that's what I bank on. People need to meet up with their needs. And some people just, hope on these properties to make ends and to, feed their family. Some people just have this property as their only source of income. So they tend to increase to meet up.
All right. We'll go on a short break and we'll be right back. Thank you so much so far. Welcome back, guys. I remain your host, Oyindamola Olanraju, and here with me still remains Barrister Godson Osai. And I'll be raising this one now. This is actually a post from Adeife Adeoye that says, I just got scammed of almost 15 million. I got a place, or I thought I got a place, and it turns out it was a scam. I'm numb. This case, what is the punishment for the offenders? Because now this issue is 50 million, no be small money.
Well, it's a pity. I believe she didn't carry out her due diligence. Maybe she didn't find out, or she didn't try to know who the landlord is, or an endorsed caretaker. I believe. I don't know the full story. But yeah, the punishment is obtaining by false pretense if those people are caught.
Yes, that's a very good factor.
Because they must have absconded.
Yes, especially with that kind of huge amount of money. Yes. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We're so honored to have you, Barrister Godson Osai. And as a wrap, I would just like everyone to take this home. House hunting in Lagos, you need to be smart. It's not just Lagos, even outside of Lagos State. You need to be very smart. Just as he has said, know your landlord. If you're knowing the caretaker, then make sure that the caretaker is actually in communication with the landlord. They are taking the house that you are taking. So you won't end up being shocked at the end of the day. Yes. Shine your eye. Way. So thank you so much for joining us on this episode.
Thank you.
Peace and out.